That out of the way. Hello.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. Also, real quick, before you do
Okay. So, yes, as Gumdrop said, this is going to be a FLStudio tutorial. Specifically, this is going to be how to use FLStudio in general, but also just how to make music and come up with ideas. And it can be applied to any kind of DAW or anything. So, just need to quickly, I forgot to get something up here, but it's a little script, a little point thing, but I'm first going to show the essentials of FLStudio, just a quick rundown for anybody here who might want to know this, and also just for the recording in general. But let's get started here. So there is about like 5 major things for the baseline of using this program. Uh, Right now I'm just on an empty project, but I've added a couple of synths here, but this is what it will look like once you start an empty project from here. So the first 5 things are: number one, this is the channel rack. This is where you add the synths and sounds you're going to make. And you can put samples here to kind of draw on drum patterns and stuff. You could also use this to have different pitches. You can kind of hear it. It doesn't work very well on drums, but for purposes of demonstrating, it doesn't work very well on drums, but you can hear different pitches. But primarily, you'll be using this for synths, which if you right click on one of these or click this plus button, it gives you the option to add a synth. And I'm just gonna open Flex. This is it's like a versatile sound bank. Has a bunch of basic sounds and settings you can tweak with to do stuff. So that's the channel rack. It just lets you add in things to be able to play with. The next thing is the library on the left side here. This is basically a file browser, but it's put into FLStudio so that you can access it on the fly. And it has all the FLStudio directories for all sorts of stuff. Here's there's like, well, this is the downloads to your download folder, but the rest is in FLStudio. There's a plugin database with all the effects and the presets for the synths and effects and stuff. You can also just find the synths on the left side here. If you search for whatever its name, if I search Flex at the bottom here, I'll be able to find it, as well as being able to find stuff here. But usually you will be using this browser for browsing sound files. So FLStudio comes with its own packs that are built into it. This green one here, this is a custom directory that I've added, which I won't go into right now. I'll just focus on what comes with FLStudio. So you can see there's drums, there's some instruments like bass and stuff. There's a bunch of different things. There's loops. It's just a bunch of sound files. There's some vocals and stuff too. But for right now, I'm just gonna get some simple drums. You can just find whatever you want, click and drag it into the channel rack, and it puts it into a sampler. Or just for simplicity's sake, it just puts the sound into here so you can play with it. Now, this is what it usually looks like here. I meant to have it like that to begin with, but once it's like this, you can just click and draw simple beats into here. Have a hi-hat. You can get snares, claps, whatever you want. And you can do it with synths, but it's not very effective. It probably isn't going to get the result that you want. To do that, you would have to right click and open the piano roll. And you already saw me do this, I didn't explain it. But this lets you actually draw in the notes, the pitch and the tempo. It lets you get the fine details in of what you want. So this is for like bass lines, chords, melody progressions, all of that stuff. It's like your bread and butter for composing the song, basically. Whereas I would say is probably like half of it, which I'll get into the next part here. Number 3 most important thing is the playlist. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. I'll try to just keep it simple and as slow as I can, but when you make stuff in here, it goes into a pattern, and the patterns are up here. So you, I have these ones I made earlier. I'm gonna get to those later, but if I make these drums here, it's contained within pattern 3. In a new project, it would just be pattern 1. So that automatically is able to be loaded into the playlist. So if I select pattern 3 here, I can click and draw it wherever I want into the playlist. And this is where the actual song gets like composed and structured. This is where you make melodies and stuff and patterns, beats, but this is where you actually arrange them into a song. And as well as making patterns here, you can get sound files and drag them in directly. Some people like to make drums like this as opposed to on a pattern. That's totally fine. Comes with its own benefits and drawbacks. For one, with the pattern, it's just convenient to be able to do that. But for this, you can adjust the levels of each individual thing on the fly. You can edit the sample files, or you can edit the sample, do all sorts of stuff. And mostly, you will use this for putting effects in. So if I want to go like, there's like a kind of riser effect and stuff. But you'll get the idea. These are things that you'd put in that you wouldn't really want to put into a pattern. You'd want to let this be free and be able to place it exactly where you want and stuff. So on to the next part is the mixer. You can access that. Oh, I missed this part, but up here are the buttons to open the channel rack, the playlist, and the mixer, and some other things as well, like the browser, but usually you won't get rid of that unless you really want the working space. Oh, sorry, I didn't quite see the chat you did, gumdropgaming. My window's a little small. If I want some 8-bit beat boops. Yeah, so I think I already kind of explained that, but just to directly answer your question, that's where you'd find a synth that let's get there. That's where you'd find a synth that has those noises or can create those noises. And then just draw them in here and do what you want with that. And yeah, this is like very similar to like just any program, honestly. Like art programs, video editing programs, game engines, music production. It's all kind of the same, really. And so yeah, you just like play with buttons and arrange things, kind of. So maybe it's slightly less involved in certain ways than a game engine because you have to actually code stuff, but yeah, you're creating something in a program. It's pretty cool. But anyways, where I was on the mixer here. So when you have your stuff here, either in the channel rack or in the playlist, you can send it to a mixer channel, and that is where you get to apply effects to it and further edit the sound. So you can see here, this is where it tells you which channel it's on. Right now it's on nothing, but if I drag it up to 1, then it's here. You can see it play here. When it's on nothing, it just plays on the master. So everything is automatically routed to the master. If it's not routed to the master, then there will be no input whatsoever. This is basically the final input. You shouldn't have to worry too much about whether or not something is here because it is always going to be here. But when you put something onto a different mixer track, let's go back to this, put it up to 1. Well, it's 2 now, but you can see down here it's routed to the mixer, the master. If I turn this down, turn that down, here. So if I want this synth on the master, what you can do is select it and press Control L. It will automatically name and color it, so it's just good for organization. And now getting onto the effects. So that is over here. This is like the synths, but it gives you all these different effects. These are kind of like synths. They're all just kind of plugins, but the synths are sound generators, whereas the effects apply effects to the sound. Some of the most popular effects are parametric EQ, delay, and reverb, which I'll show you reverb first. And actually this already has reverb on it, so I will disable that. If I enable the reverb, makes it sound like it's in a room kind of thing. And there's all these settings I can play with to adjust and fine tune the sound of the reverb itself. And this one is something that gets put on almost everything, is parametric EQ, or just an EQ in different plugins or different audio workstation programs. It's not specifically called parametric EQ, but EQ, equalization, is what it is. And so every sound has like a range of frequencies that it has contained within it. So if I boost up these frequencies here, you can see it's labeled bass, low, mid, high, treble. That's what it does. So you can just control the frequency range of each sound and fine tune it. Which once you get into making music and mixing, it is really useful to just control the overall quality of the sound of the song. And then this also comes, this is how you get this kind of effect here. I just click and drag these down and so that's what the EQ is. And then another one that's really popular is delay. It gives an echo. That's basically just what it is. So yeah, this just has a bunch of tools that let you edit the sound basically and do some more stuff with it. And there's more that affect the quality of the sound and stuff that distorts it, things that compress the sound. But I'm just going through the basics right now. Got to get this back up. And the final thing of like the 5 big things I mentioned is going to be the tempo here. So let's get this kick going. The tempo is the BPM or the speed of the song. So I put it down. This is beats per minute. That's basically all it is. If you right click, you'll have more options. Here's the like commonly used BPMs, or you can tap the tempo of what you want. Tells you what it is. Very good tool in FLStudio. Lots of other digital audio workstations probably have something similar. So I'm just gonna run back what I said. So the 5 essentials are the channel rack right here. Lets you load in sounds, pick sounds from here, lets you make melodies and stuff, and they get turned into patterns, which then go into the playlist, which is number 2. This is where you sort and you sort the composition, you arrange the composition of the actual song. And number 3, which is actually number 2 that I mentioned, but it's number 3 now, is the library. This is the browser. Number 4 is the mixer. Number 5 is the beats per minute. If you can just basically use those, then you are capable of like arranging a song and kind of adjusting things more where you want them to go now. Let's see. So once you actually know how to use the program and know what some of these things do, then you need to actually make the music. So I'll just go here and I'll delete some of these things I don't need. So to come up with music, there's a few ways. The biggest one is just your imagination. Like if you know what you hear in your head and you know how to put it down, then you can just put it down. Like if you have an idea, then you can just do stuff. Otherwise, that doesn't easily come to everybody and doesn't come all the time to the people who it might be easy to. Then there's a few ways you can come up with ideas, like I would say kind of mechanically, even though everything eventually comes down to your imagination and creativity, you can use mechanical methods to spark that inspiration and creativity. And I have, how much is it? I have 4 ways I have written down here that, actually 3 ways. 3 big ways I have written down that you can come up with ideas if you don't know what to do. So number 1 is you can use generators within FLStudio. There are chord progression tools and there's like an arpeggiator, which I'll explain what that is. But let's get into the chord generation tool. First, I'm gonna just find a good sound. I should get rid of these effects here. Hey, Ultravisan, thank you for joining. I'm doing good. If you haven't noticed, I'm on the marathon right now. I think you saw the post for. But you can find that at gumdropgaming's Twitch channel, which I will put in my main server right now. Come on, Discord. Sorry for that delay. This sounds good enough. So the chord generation tool, in order to use that, you go to the piano roll, go to tools, generate chord progression, and right there it just makes you something already. Apparently this is not the right sound to use because it is set to play only one note at a time. There we go. Generate chord progression. Let's see how that sounds. So this tells you what specific chords they are and stuff. I don't actually know music theory very much. If you do, it's helpful, but if you don't, it's okay. You can still do a lot of work, and it might not necessarily matter. Really, it just kind of, if you know it, it streamlines some things and maybe makes some things faster. But really, all you need is your ears. If it sounds good to you, then it sounds good. In most cases. So I don't really use this too much. I don't know all the ins and outs, but there's some basic things that help you. There's, for one, you can edit the key that it's in. Even if you don't know specifically what this is, you can just experiment. I'll do D, and let's try major Ionian. And then generate. That's nice. And there's this knob that's very important, conventional versus adventurous. So let's put it all the way here. Try adventurous. So yeah, all of it just sounds pretty nice because it is actual chords and stuff. And then over here you can adjust the length of the chords and how many there are. Two, let's make 8. And I think because I did it afterwards, it made these ones 2 beats as opposed to 1 bar, which is 4 beats. But yeah, you can play around with this however much you want. Just find whatever settings you want to do stuff with. I think down here is just like, I guess, yeah, there's more settings, but the most important 3 is this, the key, and these 3 up here. So you can use this to kind of generate something for you and get inspiration. That's number 1 way of thinking of music. Number 2 that I have, where's my thing? Keeps disappearing on me, I don't know why. But number 2 is just experimenting. This is probably like most popular one. So what that means is just you find a sound that you like or you think is interesting and just hit random keys on the keyboard or draw random notes into the piano roll. I actually have some sounds here that I was looking at earlier. So I'm just pressing notes on my actual like typing keyboard. I say notes, but it's keys. There's sometimes where I will just like hit random things and be like, oh, that sounds really good. And my mind can project that forward into like, this is what that will sound like kind of thing. New pattern. I'll go to the piano roll. I could be like, oh, that was really nice. What notes did I just press? You can see it lit up there, but if you didn't see or can't remember or didn't have it open, go to Tools, Last Tweaked. Sorry, not last week. Dump score log to selected pattern, and I'll do last 2 minutes, but there's other options there. And there, it records all the key presses that you do. And when you dump score log, it puts it into the selected pattern, which is pattern 4 when I'm on. And then here it is. Yeah, that's very nice. I'm just gonna control, select that, control C, copy it, go to new pattern, just so I don't have to mess around with all that other stuff. I'm gonna put it here. Something else you can do is just drag everything down and it'll still sound in key because it's all about relativity, the notes relative to each other. You can't hear FLStudio? That's weird. It says there's sound input or output on my side. Are you getting output on your side, Gumdrop? Because my stream is picking it up. Assuming I can be heard. I'm assuming I can be heard. Okay, I can. I can hear it on the Twitch now. Great. So I'll just play this. That's what that sounds like. I'm glad there's sound on the Twitch side now. Because this is the most important part, to start having sound anyways. See if I can get anything ready here in the meantime. Keep playing this. So I can hear it when the sound is working. It's fixed? Okay, great. So, where was I? This was the chord generator. And actually, no, this wasn't the chord generator. This is me, right, experimenting. So yeah, this is me just hitting random keys. I recorded it with the dump score log. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good. Experimenting even more. Here's this sound that I can use for a bass that I found earlier. It's called Cassioville. It might have had reverb and stuff. I turned it off. I turned down the release. Now I'm gonna do this. I can play it on my keyboard. So once you have something that you like, you can get another instrument like a bass or like a pluck or some kind of lead noise. It sounds really bad because I'm not playing it in key. I'm just hitting random notes, but you can do that and you'll also find something that's like, oh wow, that sounded pretty good. I'll go this, make a bass. Now I know what keys I was pressing this time, so I'm just going to draw it in here. For the type of music that this sounds like, this is like a popular kind of bass pattern, just like... And I guess I'll say some shortcuts that I'm using along the way. If I highlight this with Control, I can press Control B, and it'll automatically place it on the next line. If I have it like this, you see it leaves that gap. It copies the entire selection. You can also just like do this if you wanted. There's lots of ways to just like have shortcuts for drawing things in. So let's put that there. Let's get, I think pattern 5 is it. I'll call this chords. Also, thanks for the follow. What's that name? I'm having trouble reading it because my window's small here. Oh, Myth Shack. Okay. On Twitch. Yeah, thanks for the follow. That's really nice. If I wanted to go further, let's call this ARP, or I could call it lead. And now I have to find a sound that sounds good with these two. Now the key with this, once you start layering sounds together, is to find things that kind of fit into the frequency range gaps in between the other sounds. If you want, you can, actually I should put these on their own channel. So Control L, if I click this, I can put it on its own, it selects it, Control L. If you want, you can look with parametric EQ on both of them and just see what's going on. So you can see that it's more concentrated in the high end. It is dispersed here, but that means there is some kind of space here. You could still fit another high-end synth in with that, but there's a chance that you'll have to like cut down a little bit on either one or the other just to make space for it. Otherwise, it may start to not sound good, which you just have to use your ears and you'll probably hear whether or not there's a problem. And if you're not sure, then experiment. Try, if you see two sounds concentrated in the high end, turn one of them down, see if that sounds better or not. That's just the most important thing for making music in general. You don't really need to know anything, you just need to know what it sounds like. If you're an avid music listener and you really love listening to music, then you know what sounds good. You know how to pick up the rhythm and the patterns and stuff and the melodies. So you'll be able to hear if something's wrong if you compare two things next to each other. Or you'll be able to hear which one sounds better. So anyways, back to what I was doing here. I'm finding another sound. Hearing this, I have an idea for like an ARP, like a da 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 da, like something like that. So now I need to find a sound that may complement those ones. Let's go to mobile synth pluck. Oh, I gotta not sort. There we go. Come on. Come on. How do you know if it sounds complement each other? Either you can tell by the frequency range that they both have. That's like the minor aspect of it. Let's get this in here so we can see the parametric EQ. So this is the synth pluck here, and this is the pad saw. So you just look at which frequency range is a higher peak or a higher concentration. So you can hear see a lot of concentration here, although there's higher peaks here. I mean, technically the higher end will have a lot of concentration by the looks of it, just because, see, it goes 63 up to 136, but here it goes to 2,000 to 6,000 to 18,000, so it's just more concentrated in general. But look at the peaks. You can just kind of tell it has more here on this side than over here. So I'm going to draw in a pattern here so I can have them playing next to each other. So there's one, you can look at the frequency range, see how they fit together. And then there's two, you just listen with your ears. So this sounds okay with these other sounds, but I think it could sound better. But before I get to that, I'll talk about what I just did here. And yeah, it got good fast. That's the thing. Like something can sound really bland, but you add another element with music, and then it just starts to come together. It's really nice. But here in the Illumined Sun, which is the saw chords, I lowered this. And you can hear the pluck a lot better if I turn this up. You can just kind of hear it gets covered up. Even though you pay attention to the pluck, you can hear it better, maybe. It just in general gets covered up more by the similar frequencies. So then that kind of becomes like an art of like knowing what to turn down, what to turn up to let everything fit together and sound like a coherent one song. But for this sound, this is more like maybe like a clubby kind of, it's just a different sound profile than these saw chords and saw bass. So I'm going to quickly find something. Maybe this might work. No, it's still back to Samir synthwave. Then because things are in the mixer, it lets you just edit the volume of things. Now, this is a very similar sound to the Illumined Sun, but it can still work together with it, especially if you use EQ and boost or lower some of the frequencies to allow for the other to have space where it needs to have space. Which, like, there's a lot that goes into that. I won't really get into mixing too much. You just do slight adjustments and listen with your ears. And if you get into music production, the more you do it, the more you edit around, the more you'll start to understand. And like, you'll probably start watching videos, tips how to do stuff, and just pick up more and more. And so there's another thing that I wanted to get into for the, what is it called? Just a generation and thinking of ideas. If you can't just like whip up like an arpeggio, that's what this would be called, short notes. If you can't whip that up really easily or fast like I just did there, what you can do is, I'll do this. Actually, that'll disappear once I open this again because empty is gone. So new pattern. I'll copy these chords into the ARP, the sound I'm using for the ARP anyways. If I go up here, go to tools, there is a arpeggiator, arpeggiate. And it'll turn those chords into an arpeggio. There's a bunch of settings you can fool around with here. I don't really use this, but this can be really good. You can just like fool around with stuff. Let's see what it sounds like right away. See how that sounds with this. And it's like slightly messy in some places, but then that's where you can just go into it and edit it and fine tune it however you want. This is a really good way to come up with ideas or help yourself get ideas and get inspired. And let's see what else. I'll just keep that one for now. Now, another way you can come up with ideas, which It kind of really works for me. I don't really do it this way, but it's kind of similar the way my mind works. You, in a sense, copy other songs or copy elements from other songs, and then use that as inspiration to make it go its own direction. So let's see if I can quickly find something to as a good example to copy. Music. I gotta make sure it is not copywritten as well. It'd be good if I just used like, oh, you know what? I know. I have a copyright free music folder. For this song. You can hear that ARP there. So if I wanted to use that as inspiration, I would take the bass or take the chord progression or just the chords in general, and I would just, I already have a similar sound. Let's do the BPM. I heard it is like bum, 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 bum. Or it could even be dun, 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 dun. Sometimes twice as fast is better. So that's the first two notes of the bass progression. But then, even without hearing the rest, I can say, oh, well, I want this to turn into. And then do that. Let's see what it actually sounds like. It already just, I just use this as inspiration, and it's already like its own thing now. Like, I just took the first two notes, and then I started doing my own thing with it. You could do the same thing with like any aspect of a song. And also, even if you had the exact same bass progression or chord progression, you could literally just shift up the notes or shift them down a little bit, and let's see what that. And that already gets turned into its own thing, and you can start doing whatever you want with that. And I kind of wouldn't recommend copying a melody and just leaving it as it is, because melodies are much more distinct, and that gets into the range where like you would get copyright striked. Not that that is the most important aspect to that. Like, you don't want to just copy someone else's music. You want to turn it into your own thing. The goal here is just to use other people's music as an inspiration. And like, kind of in the grand scheme of things, every song is a remix of every song, just in that it's all just sound and patterns and stuff. And like, there's so many songs that use the same chord progression or use the same bass line or use the same rhythms, same drums, but they're still an entirely different song than what they have similar elements to, like that other song. If I copied the melody, the main melody. Let's use this. This is similar enough. Actually, this is more echoey. So that's the melody of this. You could also do stuff like grab the highest note, drag it down. That might not exactly sound like the best if you just do it like that, but if you have the melody drawn out like this, then you can start to make variations. Let's try dragging it down a few. And boom, it's its own, basically its own thing now. Like it still has this, like this kind of bounce to the melody. That is still similar, but that's okay. Like it's not really copying anymore. As long as you turn it into your own idea and do something unique with it, let it inspire you and turn it into something else, then that's just perfect. So all of that I was going to is three different ways to come up with stuff. One was to use the generation tools like the chord generation and the arpeggiator. Other one was just to experiment and hit some keys, draw on some notes. Be like, oh, that sounds good. Put that into a pattern, let that pattern play, and then hit some notes while that pattern is playing, like I did to create this. And then just let that take you away. And then the kind of copying another song's ideas and taking it your own direction. Those are like the three big ways I can think of to help you get inspired if you are stuck and don't know what to do, if you can't just like make your own thing up. So now that we got the how to use the program, how to come up with ideas, uh, next there's the actual turning it into a song. That's the hard part that a lot of people uh, struggle with, I think. And Gumdrop, seeing as I started like an hour early, how much time do you think is appropriate for me to have remaining? Because I could keep going for probably another 45 minutes with useful stuff, if that doesn't mess with the schedule or anything. Okay, that's great. Is it okay if I take a very quick bathroom break? So I've been drinking a lot of water. Okay, I'll be back in like 2 or 3 minutes. BRB. Okay, I have returned. Now I'm going to attempt to make this into a song. So this is a nice loop here. But then how do we turn that into a song? Now this is where there's two parts to this. One is it could involve a lot of creativity and imagination and just trying to think for yourself what you want. But then the other half of that is that you could still draw inspiration from all the music you like, all the music you listen to, whatever song you're trying, like style of music that you're trying to replicate. And it's like just copying the patterns, the chord progressions, the rhythm or the drums, whatever. Now you're gonna simulate like the song structure itself. So we got this part that's the intro, is building up. You can hear the background like vocals and little effects. There's that reverse cymbal crash that happened there. And now it chord shifts and introduces a snare. Changes the bass line a little bit. Maybe it's not a chord shift, but just the bass line gets changed. So using that as an idea, we can see what this sounds like. And this actually started playing faster because I changed the key. Let's go. And let's see. Since these are kind of off, maybe it could sound a little more organic that way, which is always a good thing. But I, for simplicity's sake right now, want to quantize. I think that aligns it up to the, whoops. It should align it to the piano roll. I actually don't know how to use that tool, so I'm sorry I can't really show it too well. So I'm just going to do this. splice tool there. Delete these. Drag it out to the proper. So it's actually snapping for the chords right now because I use the chord progression tool. Which is unfortunate. I actually did know how to stop this from happening, but I forgot. Let's try Alt G. That did it. Because we use the chord tool, it kind of groups things together in a certain way. But if you select all and press Alt G, it ungroups it. Unless you place everywhere again. So, if we want to start at the beginning of the song here. I'm imagining this is a little generic, potentially. You can make it fade in. Just like that. But you can see when you play the song, it doesn't do that by itself. This is where automation comes into play. So this is the knob down here that is actually moving this. And I changed the preset on this. Here, I'll put it back to normal and just manually turn it into that. So you see all these knobs. This makes it go up and down. This is left and right. This is the bandwidth, or kind of like how wide it or harshly it does it. But I didn't like when people try to teach you sheet music. Don't know by looking at it maybe how long the notes should be. This makes the note length obvious. Yeah, it's like really, it's really nice having a visual representation like this in the program itself. Definitely makes it a lot easier and simpler. So in order to make this happen automatically, you right click on this and create automation clip. If you do that, it'll put it in the entire length of your song. If I had this over here, it would make this length. So I'm going to undo that, and what I can do instead is control click and highlight this length up here. If you do it down here, it selects this, but if you do it up here, this is the timeline. Open that, then create automation clip, and you'll see it'll confine it to your selection, which is very good. And then I want it to be a little longer, so I can do that. But now to me, this sounds a little repetitive, and maybe to some of the listeners out there too, you feel the same. So I'm going to change some of the chords here to have it carry on the story a little longer before it resets. So to do that, I can either click this and make this unique to separate it from this pattern, but I can also make two, highlight them, and Control G to group them together into one. So let's see where I want this to go. Is this the same? So these two are pretty much like the same chord, but even just changing these first two notes, like recontextualizes this whole section. See how that sounds now. And I want to change this to just really help it. That chord might not fit into the rest, let's see. Not quite. This is the part where like I can use my ears and I can hear, this doesn't sound quite right. This isn't really what I want. And I'm like, right now I'm hearing something in my head, but I'm not actually quite sure how to make it. This is where I would have to experiment a little bit. I don't really want to take too much time, so I might just settle for something. I think that's close enough for right now. There we go. And right here, I think that would be a good time to add in the bass line. So I should probably talk about this. Everything in music kind of works, like generally in music these days, things are structured to in like terms of 4 and 8 bars. Sometimes double 8, which is 16. Maybe even 32 sometimes. But in the most popular music these days, whether it's electronic or even like acoustic kind of rock stuff, it's like every 4 and 8 bars is when something repeats or when something changes. So that can be just a good guideline to follow. And of course, you still use your ears. You still use your sense and feeling of music to guide what you want to do. But if you really don't know music, like how to structure things, or you're not sure, you can follow that as a guideline. So I want the bass to start coming in here on the 4th bar. And you know what? I actually hear in my head that this could be, the idea here is I want it to be faster. Da 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 da, as opposed to da da da. So I'm going to select all this, shorten it by half, copy paste, and boom, it just puts it like that. And because this is going lower, I now want this part to go lower. So I'm going to make unique just to save my original one. And this is saying this is not used anywhere else. Do you want to make it unique anyways? Yes, I'll do that. And the original is still right here on the side. Bass number 2. Try that. And you can kind of see I'm still experimenting, like just doing random things. You don't always have to know what you want to do. If you have like a kind of system or guidelines that you're following, you can experiment along that. So I just knew that on the second half, I wanted the bass to be different, I guess. And I had the bass chords for this part in bass number 1, but not this half. So I was just kind of like experimenting what sounds best, pausing and playing at each different part. And until I found one, I was like, oh, that sounds really good to me. So now that's what it's going to be. And because this is fading in here, I'm also going to make the bass fade in as well. You know, for simplicity, let's call this chords. And the same here. We got the bass. And here's a trick that I'm going to start doing here. I'm going to add a second EQ and make it purely for the sake of low pass and high pass. Which, by the way, this is low pass, low frequencies are passing through, and high pass, vice versa. That way, I can make edits here and retain that without messing with it on the same, you know, thing. Both will apply, just this one will apply later, but it doesn't really matter in which order in this sense, because both of them will be applied. But have that selected. Let's get this in here. It's always nice to have little flourishes, little elements, kind of ear candy, but just stuff that leads into whatever transitions you're doing. For electronic music, especially, transitions are a very important part for the overall feel of the song, usually. So, something I hear in my head here is like a high pitch, kind of like sound coming like, wah, really high pitch, more high pitch than my voice is conveying there. Let's go high saw since, and you know what? I'll actually save this for after this part. Let's get some like reverse white noise or crash, cymbal crash. So let's see if I can find some in the default FL. You know, this may sound good. Put this here, double click it, and I can reverse it. And that's how we do it. And this doesn't sound very good to me. I'm going to start going into my custom sounds to get some good sounds. There's lots of free resources to get these sounds. Just search like synthwave free sample pack or whatever genre just on Google. There's lots of free sample packs you can download with lots of good sounds. And something I recommend is Cymatics. 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 There's lots of free packs you can download there. Which here it is. Cymatics. This is just one of them, but I've like combined a lot of them into one big pack. But anyways, find a good cymbal noise. I like that. Maybe that could be a reverse. And now we get a crash. Maybe just for right now, I'll settle this. So here's another thing for just making music. There's one aspect where it's good to pick the right sounds as you go so the thing sounds good. That's one idea. And the other idea, which I think could be better most of the time, is just to fill things in with the general idea to get the song finished. And then afterwards, start replacing the sounds with things that sound better. It's like a balance between those two elements, picking good things from the get-go and picking good things later on after you actually flesh out the song. The reason why the second one is important is sometimes you might spend like a lot of your energy trying to find the right sounds for just like an 8-bar segment. And then by the time you've done that, you've kind of lost steam on the inspiration train. So I recommend a lot of the time, if you can help it, to just find something quickly that's good enough, just so you can keep that inspiration going and keep fleshing out the song as it goes along. And I think you can understand what I mean. Just let the inspiration ride to get you to finish the basic idea of the whole song. And then that's when you can start to flesh everything out afterwards. And so this is a nice little crash here. To add even more flavor to it, I'm going to make a white noise. I like to call this ocean sweep. This is something I use a lot. You can do this with any digital audio workstation as long as you have access to white noise. In FLStudio, you go to 3x oscillator. Here's what it sounds like, but here is static noise. If you want, here's the level for the other two oscillators. Turn it all the way down. Although, it doesn't even really seem to matter that much. I kind of like how it sounds like with all three. Anyways, I'll call this Ocean Sweep. Control L. Here it is here. So it's really loud and noisy, but once you do this, that's how you get that nice air, ocean, sweepy noise that you might hear in a lot of music. And even more, to make it nice and cool sounding, I'm gonna add a reverb. Let's adjust some settings. I'll turn the wet signal up a little bit. This is just how much reverb is applied in a sense. So if it's 0, it's just a dry signal. If it's high, it means there's lots of the reverb signal being added to the final output. I'm going to turn the decay time up. Going to make it more damp. And I'm going to make the size bigger. Sounds like it's in a bigger room than if it's like this. And then I can adjust the high cut and the low cut. What that is just this and this. So if I'm cutting the lows, it's turning this up, but purely on the reverb signal, not the actual sound. You can hear that. It's good to, on any reverb you have, to cut the highs and the lows at least a little bit. Because once there's lots of sounds playing in the song, that reverb, you're gonna want to have only as little of it audible as you need, so it doesn't get in the way of the frequencies of all the other sounds. That's part of how you have a clean mix, how do you get a clean mix. So I think this is okay just for right now. I'm going to go into here. Oh right, I need to do this. It kind of doesn't matter how long you make this. You have it just like one bar. I like to just make it like this. It doesn't matter because once you get into here, you can just control the length like that. And then add on more, however much you need. Since I'm just going to clear the chat here so you can see. Go like that. And you know, I'll keep this like that. So there's not too much rumble. And now we get into this part. So because I have the earlier bass from this first half, I'll put it like that. Oh, that's actually interesting. I don't remember. Oh, I see. That's the old holdover. So I'm going to select unused here, right click and delete. So now this is cleaner for the sake of this tutorial. And this is pretty loud. You can turn these down. I'm going to Control G this. And I think what would sound good here is introducing a beat. Let's go to new pattern, beat. And I'm just going to go into unsorted here. By the way, this, you might be wondering how to do this. You can right click, add filter group, which I'm actually going to do right now. Call this perk or drums, whatever you like. And that way things are just organized and separate, which can be really good. Also, you might find it unnecessary. Who knows? You don't need to do this, but I like to do this to keep things separate and clean so it's easier to work with. So now I would find some kick noise. Let's do that. I'm going to have to settle for some things here and not make it sound perfect, which is fine. Even if I wasn't doing a tutorial, I might feel inclined to do that as well, because as I said earlier, I want to carry on the inspiration as much as possible and get as much of the song structure done while I'm feeling inspired, while I can. This kind of tends to be the most time-consuming part, maybe, is just finding the correct drum sounds or the ones that you want. Maybe this can be good enough. Interesting. Gotta search really quickly in one more place. Some cashmere. Now these are paid samples, but really you can find lots of good free things. Fix this one. Snares. Come on. Okay. Last try, and then I'm settling, because I can't take too long here. By last try, I mean second last, because I meant to go here. And you don't have to alternate like this. You could go... Depends on the song and the sound that you want. Then, after the 8 bars, let's change something again and have a little transition. Do that. Let's not have the same transition here. But now, to introduce the third element. And this I would change to have it grouped and change this as well. Now let's go back to hero just a little bit. And go back to that high saw that I envisioned earlier. Add new flex. Let's just do this noise. So I'm going to call this high saw. It's the same as the chords, but I'm going to do some different things to it. Make it like this. Bring some of the highs up, and this, make it down so it's not too harsh, potentially. I would rather have a different noise right here, but I'm just going to settle for now. I could always change this later, as I said. Something you can do in the piano roll is make notes glide into another note. So if I double click this, I can hit this button. There, you can see right there, it shows. Let's make it like that. Not like that. Oh, right, okay, so we want the dominant note to be the long one. Not dominant, but you want the slide to be only as long as the slide should last. That's not quite how I envisioned it sounding. I could make it sound like that more eventually, but it's kind of like the basic idea. More that I would do to this is add a reverb. Let's go to a preset just to make it fast. Large hall. No. Cathedral. Turn the dry down and the wet up just so it's more reverb. Okay, maybe that doesn't work. And now I'm going to add another EQ so I can make it fade in to sound more smooth. Put this at the bottom just to separate it. And let's automate this. Make it go up. Something did not. sound the best, but make it have a different sound, slightly edit how it transitions in, and it would sound really good. And that's the important part, is just getting the idea. And now, right here, I want it to sound stronger, so I'm going to put the sustain up here. So that way it holds the highest volume for the entire duration of the note. Because if it's down like this, I guess you can't hear it that much, but... And you know what? Another thing, we'll put the chords... I'm going to make another EQ here as well. Actually, no, this is the EQ. I'll put this. It's this one here. At this point, I'm just showing a lot of little tricks to help the transition. And I could do the same thing with the bass. I'm going to turn... keep them on, keep some of the sustain. This is all like fine tuning. I am going to just focus on the main idea here. Something I like to do in a lot of my songs, and something that is in a lot of music in general, like the electronic music that this is similar to, is sidechaining. So the way that I like to do this, you know what, I'll keep it simple, and I will do it the simple way. I'm going to copy the kick, clone. I'm going to put this to its own mixer channel, call it sidechain, and sidechain. This is like slightly more advanced here, but I guess you'll see how to do it. All you need to know is to have this not going to the master. So this signal is technically playing, but it's not getting sent to the master. All the frequencies that are here will not interfere with anything else because it's technically not playing, even though it technically is playing. And then you route this to whatever you want to be sidechained. And on the things, what? Actually, we'll create this. We'll call it sidechain bus. Have what we want sidechained to be connected to this bus, but not connected to the master. But it's okay because this is connected to the master, so it still plays. But the reason for this is so that instead of linking this to each individual element I want sidechained, I just link it to this one. And now I go here, put on a limiter, fruity limiter, go to comp, sidechain 1, and I put the threshold down. Now this stuff, it's a little complicated, but just for the purpose of sidechaining, just do what I'm doing here. there was no change, but if I put the sidechain to do every beat, now it will. And I said I'd just do it this way, but actually I like doing it a different way better. Since I already have it set up on a bus channel, I'm going to do it the way I usually do. Show you two ways of sidechaining. Let's delete that. Let's get rid of this because we don't need it anymore. If we're doing it this way, so the balance, this is basically just the volume. So I will select the length of one beat, go to the balance, right click and create automation clip. And I will manually automate the volume to duck whenever the kick's doing. Something that's important here and is very useful is double click, select the max to be 80% because that is what the zero boost default is, 80% here. If you go higher, then it'll be boosting the volume, which we don't need right now. So since the max now is 80%, this is 80%. And to sidechain, I do this. And I really like it because it gives it the rhythm, and people generally use this to make it so the kick and the snare cut through all the sound. The only downside to this way is you have to make sure it's playing throughout the entire song, which isn't that hard or really that inconvenient either. And this is maybe somewhere where you'd also have another crash transition. Maybe you wouldn't make it the exact same, but right now I'm going to keep it like that just to mark that's where what happens if I put this higher? And then there. I'm getting a little quiet. I think I'm getting slightly worn down, but still just focusing on this. Anyways. So then we've got another 8-bar loop completed. So we've got intro, this kind of leading up, is building more. And then here is maybe when it would get more quiet. And this is where you would put a bridge. And maybe I can put like some kind of solo here. Just call it synth solo. And this I'm just kind of like imagining in my own head. But I've already gone over the things you can do to come up with your ideas. Just do that constantly whenever you feel like you don't know. But right now, I'm kind of like on a roll in terms of my mind is just imagining things, which is nice. And maybe this is again the end of the 8-bar loop. You change something. So I would have it be more, bring stuff out a little more. And then pick up the pace a little bit. Let's do make unique. And just add a simple little hi-hat. So open hi-hat. So yeah, get a dubstep here. Just go to my favorites. Let's do that. Over here. So same with the patterns, automation clips you can make unique. Because if you just copy this straight up and edit it, it'll do the same edits on all the existing similar automation clips. So this is a unique one. Let's put it down. I don't want it to be full forward. Oh, that's the bass. Same thing. And maybe just to add a little more movement to the song, I will do the bass automation here. And now we're gonna group this. This is just kind of like a longer thing. I'm not sure how to explain it right now, but it's like same how this, instead of repeating this twice, we change this. And this thing is what's repeating twice. The solo is now, instead of repeating twice after 8 bars, is going to be a 16 bar length. It's like carrying the story of the song further even more. Even though the other parts are repeating the same 8 bar loop, this is making it more interesting by it's like in the context of the song. So I'm gonna and feel out what I want. And then there's another part where we have another transition. And this is a little happy accident here. It's played no note. And so I can shorten that as well. Then this is where the regular, I guess this would be the chorus. And now this is where the song will quiet down. I hope this is still kind of like, oh, this is kind of, I might not be explaining too much here, but I'm just going by feeling of the stages of the song. And it's very basic, so I think you can apply it to a lot of things. So this is like the build-up. Gets into like this is kind of the hook of the song. And because it was after the build-up, it's a basic hook of the song without the ARP. But you can see after every 8 bars, as I've already said, something changes. So it goes into the rest of the hook of the song. And then it kind of like dies down, but it's still riding out on the rhythm. as in the bass hasn't quieted down at all. It's still carrying the momentum of the song a little bit. It's building back up. And then it crashes full force into the chorus again. It sustains for 16 bars, so it's just the chorus repeated twice. Of course, you can add a little bit of a difference here. That's always nice. And then now I'm going to, what's this, the bass. Okay, let's do it like this. And then this is a part where I would say it can go really quiet and a lot more low energy. Instead of creating a new pattern, I'm just going to do that. Slow down a little bit. And do a bit of a chord change. There we go. So this would be the quiet part of the song. It's kind of died down after the chorus. Then it's going to be building back up. Then here I can envision gonna have like a blank space where it's just like it's back. If I just do that, then and then I can add this chorus again. And maybe add another synth layer on top of the pad, just to make it like more powerful. Do this and do that, and we'll cut this and we'll do that. Except this would have to also be like that. So there, I got the structure of the song there. And to have this part actually be something, I'm going to do another arp, but it's going to do a nice little bubbly lower sound just to fit in with the vibe of it slowing down and fit in with the soundscape of the rest of the sounds as well. I think I'm going to. I'll try looking for it in Flex before I open Serum. Serum is not a free program. All tags pluck. If anyone's watching and has any questions, by the way, about anything, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going and complete this song and explain the best I can the process of what I'm doing and how you can maybe replicate it. And try to just give context in the structure of the song and when you would do things and why you would do things. But it might be a little bit vague. Okay, so I am going to use Serum for the sake of time. But it doesn't matter too much. This is a very powerful tool, very useful. But basically what you just do is find sounds that you want to use. I already know what sound I want to use and I know how to get it in Serum very quickly. I would try to find it in Flex just because that's free, and anyone who has FL that's looking at this tutorial can also use Flex, but because the point is find something that you like and experiment and stuff, and I know what sound I want, and here's where I know I can find it. Okay. Quickly make something. Which making sense or presets sounds is a whole nother can of worms. I won't get into. Going to call this square pluck. Control L. I'm going to add a reverb called ROM. This is also not free, but you can still use the FLStudio reverb. And I'm going to clean up the signal. Let's do this. And because I made the sustain higher on the chords here, I'm going to make an automation clip and put it back down so it's much lighter. That already sounds nice and soft. Where, oh, where is... I didn't make one. Square arp. All right, now we're getting back into it. So I got this nice thing going on. Then next, I'm going to start bringing back in the bass. And to make space in the organization of the playlist here, I'm going to right click on one of these, insert one. Now there's a nice empty space. I don't have to mix it with the bass or anything like that. And we're gonna do this. Make unique, because this is twice as long. Okay, I didn't double up notes there. And I'm gonna do this. Oops. Control V. Oh, interesting. Control C, Control V. let's make unique. And if I wanted to make this exactly the same level as before, here's the base here. Copy value on this little node and paste value. And also this, we would go back up. And it automatically added it here, but I can just do that. And just to have it more impactful, I could do something like adding another crash in the middle of this. I gotta delete that, do that, do that. And I'm gonna make the beat also have a hi-hat, but also can't really hear it. Let's do that and make it trail and then that would be the end of the song. I just copy actually this whole transition here. So this is very rough, a very rough version of the song. Obviously it doesn't sound the best. It does sound pretty okay. There could be a lot of parts that are more fleshed out. That's like the more creative side, and on the more mixing side, that's where you'd get more into maybe sound design and stuff is what you'd call it, but you might layer another pad on here to bring it out more. Let's call this, let's do this. Well, there's a lot I could do to this, which depending on how much time I have, I'll do more. But this is like the basic gist of the tutorial, kind of. There's more stuff I can explain and will, like I mean, I don't have it all nailed down to like a concise science. A lot of it is just feeling. Is a lot of this comes from my sense of music and like an amalgamation of ideas from all the music that I've listened to that are just in my head. Like I like to listen to music a lot, and so I already have like ideas in my head of song structure and stuff. And then I've been doing this for a long time. Well, kind of. I started over 10 years ago, but there's been lots of off periods, but I still have had good experiences using this program in general. But like at the end of the day, it all boils down to what you can hear in your head, what you want, or just like what you hear and what you feel from music, like what you feel wants to be there is what I'm trying to get at. So like there's the idea here. There's a lot I would want to change if I were going to turn this into an actual song. But really I wanted to convey how you could start to come up with ideas on your own, and then how to structure a song, kind of vaguely how to structure a song. There's a lot that I'm not explaining that maybe I would have a hard time pinning down and knowing, but I'm doing my best to give like a guideline. So like what this started off with at the very beginning was just this loop. Let's delete. Literally in this order, it was this. And then I just kind of, how do I put it? I just kind of came up with what could be built around this loop, how to turn this kind of into a story. Like this is a very basic story, if you put it like that, but it still goes somewhere and goes places. Maybe I should play the whole song just as it is right now, just to give a sense of what I've done here. Yeah, there it is. Also, welcome, Novella. Yeah, Gumdrop made this. I'm doing the marathon right now. If you don't know, I'm this is my segment as part of a fundraiser live stream marathon for is raising money for St. Jude Children's Hospital, which the it's on Gumdrop Gaming's Twitch channel. And actually, yeah, you're on Twitch right now. You could click his channel and find his live stream, which is basically just this right now, but it's the main one. And so yeah, this song, it's a song. Like it's serviceable. It's not finished, I wouldn't say, but like it's got like a beginning, middle, end kind of thing. It's got its sections. It just needs to be fleshed out. And I guess that would be the next part in how to fully make a song is actually doing doing all the small bits and pieces that really make it sound full and finished. But basically all that just comes from what you want to hear and bringing it to life with the program, which there's a lot to that. I can't really cover all of it. All I can really do now is just give an example of what how I would flesh things out. Which when is the next segment Gumdrop? Because I could potentially be at the end here. I could still keep going for a little bit. Need about 10 minutes after I'm done. Okay. I'll quickly go through some of the flourishes and stuff that I could add to give some examples. And then I believe I'll call it done after that. And I don't think I'll take very long here. Drink some water. You know what? That actually might be good. Another day I could do part two. I'll talk to you about that. But very quickly, I'll in like for 10 or 15 minutes, I'll go through some stuff. Or maybe like 5 to 10 minutes or something. Won't take that long. So, continuing with this, as I've said already, this is like a song now. We've got the structure nailed down. That very well might be like the most important part of making a song is getting the structure down. And I'm trying to think of the saying, but it's like the last 10% is actually like 90% of the effort. That might not be the actual saying or whatever it is, but the last 10% is polishing up. Yeah, I won't even say it's like 90, 10% or whatever. Just a major chunk is getting the structure down. But anyways, now we try to refine the sound. So something I would do for this is like make this sound more full. A way to do that is to add some layers. Nexus is a paid program. That's okay. Ads. Just find any sound that you think might fit and try it. Chords. This is a little crazy sounding. You might be able to tell, maybe not. Chords 2. That's where the mixer rack comes into play. So we got chords here. No, let's start color coding this very quickly. And because there's already so much going on, I disabled the reverb, the delay, and right now I want this on for this one because it plays later. And I don't want to do all the automation necessary to turn it off and on right now. You know, I will turn off for now. So I added a layer and now I'm going to clean up some of the frequencies. This I'm just making room for the bass. There's not that much here that's valuable for most sounds except for bass noises, but they still kind of like cloud up the frequency spectrum. You can hear that makes it more powerful. And I want the bass to hit harder, so I'm going to add compression in the form of OTT. So what compression does is it squashes the peaks of the sound and brings up the rest. So if the high frequencies are really much louder than the rest of the frequencies in the spectrum, then it will bring those down kind of and bring the rest of the sound up. just extend this over to here. Another example of a flourish. That dude. And then add like another drum hit, like doo-doo. Anything, hi-hats, drum hits, toms. You could add any sorts of small little sound, like wherever you see fit. And then here, I can maybe add another like lead noise. Or even go back to this. Have it play something. And let's see how that sounds with this now. This isn't really the right sound for this part, but you can imagine a better cymbal and it would be better here. But yeah, I think that's all I can really go into right now without going crazy in depth into other areas. And I hope this is helpful for somebody. I really want to try to capture that, like, how to actually make music, like just how to use the program, how to make sounds and put sounds together. But really, the thing that I see people struggle with the most is the structuring and turning things into an actual song. At least that's what I struggle with the most, anyways. I know a lot of people are similar, but that's my biggest thing, is really turning things into a whole song. And it actually is really simple, even though I struggle with it.
Even though I struggle with it.
You
Even
just
though I
got
struggle with
to.
it.
Oh.
Even though I struggle with it. Oh. Even though I struggle with it.
Some feedback. But yeah, I'll mute myself in just a moment so that doesn't happen. But yeah, you just got to. I kind of forgot what I was saying. I'm really tired, but I've already said like a lot about what I'm gonna say, anyways. Um, Yeah. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. I'll just let Gumdrop take over now.